He swore he'd bury every single crime he ever committed. Buried bodies, evidence, witnesses. And for years he believed nobody would ever see the truth. But that night, when the judge's daughter showed up at the door of his underground casino, with a blood-soaked folder, he understood that the empire he built on fear could crumble in seconds. She didn't scream, didn't cry. She just looked him dead in the eyes and whispered, "I know what you did to my father." His silence wasn't out of guilt. It was fear. Only one person in the world knew that secret, and she was standing right there. What she said next destroyed any chance of redemption. If you've ever loved someone who could destroy everything you built, you know exactly what he felt that night. If this story's got you hooked, hit that like and subscribe right now. Because maybe, just like him, you never chose to love. Love chose you. He was the boss. The man who buried every crime with blood and silence. Lost his family young, watched his name get erased from every official record, and turned that pain into pure power. His scar wasn't physical, it was the fear of being exposed. That's what kept him sharp. That's what kept him alive. Every move he made was calculated, every word measured, every enemy eliminated before they even knew they were won. In the underground world of California's crime syndicates, his name wasn't spoken out loud. It was whispered, feared, respected. He ran the whole operation from a penthouse overlooking the city lights, where deals were made over whiskey and blood, where loyalty was bought with fear and fortunes were built on secrets. Nobody questioned him. Nobody dared. And for years he thought he was untouchable. Thought the walls he built around himself were thick enough to keep the truth buried 6 feet under. But walls don't mean nothing when the person holding the match is someone you never saw coming. She was the judge's daughter. Raised in the law but shaped by something way darker. She knew how men like him destroyed lives. Because she watched it happen inside her own home. Her father wasn't just any judge, he was the judge. The one who sent kingpins to life sentences, the one who crushed empires with a single gavel strike, the one who made criminals disappear into the system like ghosts. She grew up in courtrooms surrounded by lawyers in tailored suits and cops with tired eyes. She learned early that justice wasn't blind, it was just good at pretending. And she learned something else too. That her father, the man everyone called a hero, had secrets of his own. Secrets that made her stomach turn. Secrets that made her question everything she ever believed about right and wrong. So when she found that folder in his office, covered in dust and locked away like a time bomb, she didn't hesitate. She opened it. And what she saw inside changed everything. They could never love each other. That was the rule. He was the law broken in half. She was the law that hunted him down. And what he hated most was what pulled him toward her. The truth. Because she didn't flinch. Didn't look away. Didn't play games. She stared him down like she knew every lie he ever told, every body he ever buried, every soul he ever crushed. And somehow, in the middle of all that darkness, something twisted inside him. Something he thought died years ago. Something that felt a whole lot like hope. But hope's a dangerous thing when you're a man like him. Hope makes you weak. Makes you think you can be something you're not. Makes you forget that people like him don't get happy endings, they get bullets. And she knew that too. She knew exactly what kind of man he was. But she came to him anyway. Not because she wanted to save him. Not because she believed in redemption. But because she needed something only he could give her. The truth about what really happened to her father. The night she walked into his casino, the whole place went silent. His guys clocked her immediately, designer coat, heels sharp enough to kill, and eyes that burned with something they couldn't name. She didn't belong there. That was obvious. But she walked through that room like she owned it, like she'd been there 1,000 times before, like she wasn't scared of a single soul in that building. And maybe she wasn't. Maybe growing up as the daughter of the most powerful judge in California taught her how to walk into a room full of predators and make them think twice. Or maybe she just didn't care anymore. When she got to his table, she didn't say a word. Just dropped the folder right in front of him. Blood on the edges. Dried, dark, days old. His guys reached for their guns, but he raised a hand. Told them to back off. Because he recognized that folder. Knew exactly what it was. And the second he saw it, his whole world tilted sideways. She leaned in close, close enough that he could smell her perfume mixed with something metallic, something wrong. And she whispered, "I know what you did to my father." His heart stopped. Not because he was guilty. But because only one person in the entire world knew the full story. And that person was supposed to be dead. He built his empire on secrets, on making sure nobody ever connected the dots, on erasing every trail that led back to him. But here she was, standing in his casino. With proof. With knowledge. With power. And for the first time in years, he felt something he swore he'd never feel again. Fear. Real, bone-deep, paralyzing fear. Not fear of dying. He'd made peace with that a long time ago. But fear of losing control. Fear of everything he built crashing down because of one person. One woman. One truth. She didn't wait for an answer. Just turned around and walked out, leaving the folder on the table like a grenade with the pin pulled. His guys looked at him, waiting for orders. Waiting for him to tell them to grab her, to make her disappear, to bury this problem like they buried all the others. But he didn't move. Didn't speak. Just stared at that folder like it was the only thing in the room. Because deep down he knew. This wasn't something he could bury. This was something that was gonna bury him. And the worst part? He couldn't stop thinking about her. About the way she looked at him. About the fire in her eyes. About the way she didn't beg or threaten or cry. She just knew. And somehow that knowing felt more intimate than anything he'd ever experienced. It felt like she saw him. Really saw him. Not the boss. Not the killer. Not the ghost. But the man underneath. The man he spent his whole life trying to forget. The mistake happened the day she came looking for him a second time. It wasn't for love. It was for revenge. She showed up at his penthouse unannounced, bypassed security like she had a key to the place, and walked straight into his office while he was in the middle of a meeting with his top guys. They all froze. Hands went to waistbands, eyes went cold, but he waved them off again. Told them to leave. And they did. Because when the boss says move, you move. But they didn't like it. Not one bit. They saw the way he looked at her. Saw the way his jaw tightened when she walked in. Saw something they'd never seen before in all the years they'd worked for him. Hesitation. And in their world, hesitation gets you killed. He broke his own rule that night. Took her up to his penthouse. The real one. Not the office where he conducted business, but the private floor where nobody ever went. The place where he kept the things that mattered. The photos he never showed anyone. The bottle of scotch he only drank alone. The view of the city that reminded him every single night what he was fighting for. She walked to the window, arms crossed, staring out at the lights like she was searching for something she'd never find. And he just stood there watching her, trying to figure out what the hell he was doing. His guys noticed. The security cameras caught it. The whole crew saw him bring her upstairs, and whispers started spreading like wildfire. The boss got soft. The boss got played. The boss fell for the judge's daughter. And in their line of work, that kind of talk was worse than a death sentence. It was a threat to the whole operation. She finally turned around, and that's when she opened the folder. Pulled out documents, photos, transaction records. Evidence that could take down not just him but every single person in his organization. Names, dates, payments, offshore accounts, shell companies, dirty cops on payroll, politicians in his pocket. Everything. She laid it all out on his coffee table like she was presenting a case in court, and he felt the ground shift beneath his feet. Not because he was scared of the cops. He'd been dodging them his whole life. But because she knew about the one crime he swore he'd bury forever. The one that started it all. The one that made him who he was. The one that haunted him every single night when the city went quiet and he was left alone with his thoughts. She knew about the night he killed her father. Except she didn't. Not the way he thought. She sat down across from him, eyes locked on his, and said, "You didn't kill him, did you?" And that's when everything stopped. His breath. His heartbeat. Time itself. Because she was right. He didn't pull the trigger. Didn't give the order. Didn't even know it was happening until it was already done. But he covered it up. Buried the evidence. Paid off the witnesses. Made sure the judge's death looked like an accident. A tragic car crash on a rainy night. Nothing suspicious, case closed. He did that because he owed someone. Someone who saved his life years ago. Someone who called in a favor he couldn't refuse. And now, sitting across from the judge's daughter, he realized the weight of that favor was about to crush him. She leaned forward, voice steady but laced with something sharp. Something that cut deeper than any blade. "I don't care if you pulled the trigger or not. You made sure nobody ever found out the truth. You made sure justice never came for him. You made sure I spent the last 3 years thinking my father died in some random accident when he was murdered." Her hands were shaking now, not from fear but from rage. Pure, unfiltered rage. "So yeah, you didn't kill him. But you buried him. And that makes you just as guilty." He wanted to tell her she was wrong. Wanted to explain that he had no choice, that the world they lived in didn't work on right and wrong, that survival meant making deals with the devil and living with the consequences. But the words died in his throat. Because she wasn't wrong. He was guilty. Maybe not of murder but of something worse. Of cowardice. Of choosing his own life over justice. Of letting a good man's death go unanswered because it was easier than standing up to the people who really ran things. She stood up, grabbed the folder and headed for the door. He didn't stop her. Couldn't. But right before she left, she turned back and said something that shattered whatever was left of him. He knew, my father. He knew what you were. Knew you were connected. But he also knew you weren't the one who wanted him dead. He told me once, right before he died, that if anything ever happened to him, I should find you. Because you were the only one in this whole damn city who might actually tell me the truth. She smiled, but it was bitter, broken. Guess he was wrong about that too. And then she was gone. The door clicked shut. The silence swallowed him whole. And for the first time in his life, he didn't know what to do. His phone started blowing up within the hour. His guys. His contacts. His informants. Everyone asking the same thing, what the hell was going on? Word spread fast that the judge's daughter had been seen at his place. That she had files. That she knew things. And now the whole operation was on red alert. Cops started circling. Feds started sniffing around. Rival gangs saw an opening. And inside his own crew, people started questioning his leadership. Started wondering if he was compromised. Started talking about what happens when a boss loses his edge. He knew what that meant. He'd seen it happen before. The whispers turn into plans. The plans turn into action. And before you know it, you're the one getting buried. But he couldn't focus on any of that. All he could think about was her. The way she looked at him like he was a monster. The way her voice cracked when she talked about her father. The way she walked out of his life like it meant nothing. And the worst part? He wanted to go after her. Wanted to tell her everything. Wanted to make her understand. But he couldn't. Because the truth was worse than she imagined. And if she ever found out the whole story, it wouldn't just destroy him. It would destroy her too. So he did what he always did. Buried it. Locked it away. Told his guys to tighten security, cut off loose ends and get ready for a war. Because that's what was coming. He could feel it. The empire he built was about to come crashing down, and the only person who could stop it was the same person who set it in motion. Her. The judge's daughter. The one woman in the world who had the power to save him or destroy him. And he had no idea which one she was gonna choose. Now tell me, if it was you, would you risk your life for someone who could destroy everything you built? I want to know. The truth came like a silent bullet. She saw the video. The video the judge recorded before he disappeared. The video where he confessed that the mob boss never killed anyone, but he ordered every single hit. She found it 3 days after confronting him at the penthouse. Hidden in her father's old office, tucked inside a hollowed-out law book that nobody had touched in years. The kind of hiding spot only someone who knew the law inside and out would think of. She almost missed it, almost walked right past it. But something made her stop. Some instinct. Some voice in the back of her head telling her to look closer. And when she pressed play on that old camcorder, her entire world shattered into a million pieces. Her father's face filled the screen, tired, worn down, but still sharp. Still the man who never backed down from a fight. He looked straight into the camera like he was looking at her, like he knew she'd be the one watching this someday. And then he started talking. If you're watching this, it means I'm already gone. And if I'm gone, it means they finally got to me. He paused, took a breath, and continued. I've spent my entire career putting criminals behind bars. But the one man I could never touch was the one pulling all the strings. He doesn't pull triggers. Doesn't get his hands dirty. But every murder, every disappearance, every body that washes up on the shore, it all leads back to him. The mob boss. The ghost. The man who built an empire on fear and blood. Her hands started shaking. She wanted to stop the video. Wanted to throw the camcorder across the room. But she couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Because her father kept talking. He's not the monster everyone thinks he is. I've studied him for years. Watched him. Tried to understand what makes a man like that. And you know what I found? He's just a man. A man who lost everything and decided the only way to survive was to become something worse than the people who destroyed him. But here's the thing. Her father leaned closer to the camera, voice dropping to almost a whisper. He didn't order the hit on me. I know that for a fact. Because I made a deal with him years ago. A deal that kept both of us alive. I helped him cover up something that would have destroyed him, and in return he made sure certain people in my own department never came after my family. We were never friends. But we understood each other. We both knew what it meant to live in the gray. She felt her stomach drop. Her father made a deal with the mob boss. Her father, the man who stood for justice, who never bent the rules, who sent criminals to rot in prison, made a deal with the very man she thought killed him. But then the video took a darker turn. The person who wants me dead isn't him. It's someone closer. Someone I trusted. Someone who's been using both of us as pawns in a game we didn't even know we were playing. Her father's eyes darkened. If anything happens to me, you need to find him. The mob boss. He's the only one who knows the full truth. The only one who can prove who really ordered this. And sweetheart. His voice cracked. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I dragged you into this world. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from what's coming. But you're strong. Stronger than me. And I know you'll do what I couldn't. You'll find the real monster. The video cut to black. And she sat there in the dark, tears streaming down her face, rage burning in her chest, and one question echoing in her mind. If the mob boss didn't kill her father, then who did? He didn't scream. He didn't deny. He just stared at his reflection in the window, watching the city lights flicker below like dying stars. She came back that same night. Burst through his door with the camcorder in one hand and a gun in the other. His guys tried to stop her, but he told them to stand down. Told them to leave. And when they were alone, she threw the camcorder at his feet and said, "Watch it." So he did. He sat down, pressed play, and watched the judge's confession unfold. And with every word, every revelation, every piece of the puzzle falling into place, he felt the walls closing in. Not because he was guilty of killing the judge, but because he knew exactly who was. And that person was someone he swore he'd protect with his life. Someone who saved him when he was nothing. Someone who built him into the man he was today. His mentor. The man who ran the real operation. The man who stood in the shadows while he took all the heat. The man who everyone thought was dead. When the video ended, she pointed the gun at him. Hand steady. Ice cold. Tell me who killed him. He looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time in years he told the truth. The man who trained me. The man who built this whole empire before I ever took over. Your father knew him. Worked with him. They had a deal. But your father found out too much. Found out about the politicians, the judges, the cops, everyone on the payroll. And when he threatened to expose it all, my mentor decided he was a liability. She didn't lower the gun. Where is he? He stood up slowly, hands raised. You don't want to go after him. He's not like me. He's not someone you can just confront and walk away from. He's a ghost. A phantom. The kind of man who doesn't exist on paper but controls everything from the shadows. If you go after him, you won't just die, you'll disappear. And nobody will ever know what happened to you. But she wasn't scared. She'd stopped being scared the day she opened that folder. Then take me to him. He shook his head. You don't understand. If I do that, we're both dead. My crew, your family, everyone connected to this, gone. He doesn't leave loose ends. She stepped closer, gun still aimed at his chest. Then we die. But at least we die knowing the truth. And in that moment he realized something. She wasn't asking for his help. She was giving him a choice. Stand with her and face the man who made him. Or stand aside and let her walk into hell alone. And for a man who spent his entire life playing it safe, burying bodies, covering tracks, and surviving at all costs, this was the first time he ever considered doing something reckless. Something stupid. Something that might actually mean something. The gang started moving fast. Informants vanished. Safe houses got raided. Cops swarmed the docks, the warehouses, the underground clubs. Someone was feeding them intel. Someone inside his crew flipped. And he knew exactly who. One of his oldest guys, someone he trusted for years, sold them out the second things started falling apart. Loyalty only lasts as long as the money flows. And when the empire starts crumbling, rats scatter first. He made the call. Had the guy brought in. Didn't say a word. Just looked at him. And the man broke. Confessed everything. Said the feds offered him a deal. Said his mentor reached out, told him to cut ties before the whole thing exploded. Said he didn't have a choice. He shot him anyway. Not out of anger. But because in his world, betrayal only ends one way. And after the body hit the floor, he turned to her and said, "We leave tonight." She didn't hesitate. Grabbed her coat, checked her gun, and followed him out the door. They took the back exit, slipped through the underground tunnels that ran beneath the city, and made their way to the one place his mentor never thought he'd go, the old church on the outskirts of town. The place where it all started. The place where he was recruited. The place where he became the monster everyone feared. And as they walked through those empty halls, footsteps echoing in the dark, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Fear. Not of dying. But of facing the man who made him. The man who could unmake him just as easily. And when they reached the altar, standing in the shadows, waiting like he knew they'd come, there he was. The ghost. The phantom. The man who pulled all the strings. And he smiled. That same cold, calculating smile that haunted his dreams. Took you long enough. He tried to run, reached for his gun, turned toward the door. But the man standing in the corridor made him freeze in place. The man he swore he'd never see again. The man who was supposed to be 6 feet under, buried in an unmarked grave somewhere in the desert. Her father. Alive. Standing there with a tired smile and hands covered in old scars that told stories of survival. And in that single moment, everything he thought he knew shattered into dust. The judge wasn't dead. The judge never died. And suddenly, every piece of the puzzle clicked into place in the most horrifying way possible. She didn't move, didn't gasp, didn't run to him. She just stood there, staring at her father like she was looking at a ghost. And maybe she was. Because the man standing in that hallway wasn't the same man who raised her. Wasn't the man who taught her about justice and truth and doing the right thing no matter the cost. This man had blood on his hands. Literal blood. Dried and cracked into the lines of his palms. And when he spoke, his voice was different. Colder. Harder. Hey, sweetheart. He stepped into the light and she could see the weight of years in his eyes. Years of hiding. Years of planning. Years of playing dead while the world moved on without him. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. I really am. But you have to understand, everything I did to protect you. The mob boss finally found his voice. You're alive. It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. A realization that cut deeper than any blade. You faked your own death. You set me up. You made me cover for a murder that never happened. The judge nodded slowly, no shame in his expression. Just cold calculation. I needed to disappear. And I needed someone to take the fall if things went south. You were the perfect candidate. Connected enough to make it believable. Desperate enough to do whatever it took to survive. I knew you'd bury the evidence. Knew you'd cover your tracks. And you did. Better than I ever expected. He took another step forward and the mob boss instinctively reached for his gun. But the judge raised a hand. Easy now. We're past that. Besides, you shoot me and this whole place comes down on you. Cops are surrounding the building as we speak. Every exit's covered. Every escape route blocked. You're not walking out of here. She finally spoke and her voice was shaking. Not from fear. From rage. Pure, unfiltered rage. You used me. You made me think you were dead. Made me spend 3 years mourning you. 3 years hunting for answers. 3 years destroying myself trying to find justice for a murder that never even happened. Her father's expression softened, but only slightly. I did it to keep you safe. The people I was investigating, the real players in this city, they don't just kill you. They erase you. Your entire family. Everyone you ever loved. I couldn't let that happen to you. So I disappeared. Let them think I was dead. Let them lower their guard. And I spent the last 3 years gathering everything I need to bring them all down. He pulled out a flash drive from his pocket. Every name. Every transaction. Every dirty politician, corrupt cop, and mob boss in California. It's all here. And tonight it all goes public. The mob boss laughed. It was a bitter, broken sound. You think you're the hero in this story? You think faking your death and manipulating everyone around you makes you some kind of savior? You destroyed lives. My life. Her life. You turned us into pawns in your sick game. The judge's jaw tightened. I did what I had to do. You of all people should understand that. You've been doing it your whole life. The only difference is I'm doing it for something bigger than myself. He looked at his daughter and for the first time, something human flickered in his eyes. I know you hate me right now. I know you think I'm a monster. And maybe I am. But everything I did, every lie I told, every person I hurt, it was all to give you a future. A future where men like him don't run the world. But she wasn't listening anymore. She was staring at the flash drive in her father's hand, and something cold settled in her chest. You didn't just fake your death to protect me. You did it because you needed someone to blame. Someone the world would believe killed you. Someone whose empire you could destroy while building your case. She looked at the mob boss, then back at her father. You were never going to let him walk away. You were always planning to use him as the scapegoat. And me? I was just collateral damage. A way to make the story more convincing. Her father didn't deny it. And that silence said everything. The mob boss felt the weight of betrayal crushing him. Not because the judge used him. He'd been used before. That was part of the game. But because she was used too. And watching her realize that her father, the man she idolized, the man she spent 3 years mourning, was just as much of a monster as anyone in that room, it broke something inside him. He'd spent his whole life believing he was the villain. The one everyone feared. the one who destroyed lives without hesitation. But standing there in that church, surrounded by lies and betrayal, he realized something. He wasn't the monster. He was just another victim. Another piece on the board. Another name in a file that would get buried when the dust settled. She turned to him, eyes filled with something he couldn't quite place. Not love. Not forgiveness. But understanding. We can still walk away. Both of us. Right now. Before this all explodes. He shook his head. There's no walking away. Not from this. Your father made sure of that the moment he faked his death. He looked at the judge. You win. You always do. But don't stand there and pretend you're doing this for her. You're doing it for yourself. For your legacy. For the case that'll make you a legend. And you don't care who burns along the way. The judge didn't flinch. You're right. I don't. Because at the end of the day, people like you don't deserve mercy. You built an empire on fear and blood. You destroyed families. Ruined lives. And you did it all without losing a single night of sleep. So no, I don't feel bad about using you. About letting the world think you killed me. Because when this is over and your name is plastered across every headline, and your empire crumbles into nothing, justice will finally be served. He turned to leave, and that's when the mob boss made his move. Not to kill him, but to grab the flash drive. He lunged forward faster than anyone expected, and ripped it from the judge's hand. Alarms blared. Footsteps thundered down the hallway. Cops shouting. Guns cocking. And in the chaos he looked at her one last time. Run. But she didn't run. She grabbed his hand. Not without you. And for a split second he almost believed her. Almost believed that maybe, just maybe, there was a way out of this. But then the doors burst open. Tactical units flooded the room. Red dots painted his chest. And her father stood there, hands in his pockets, watching the whole thing unfold with that same cold smile. It's over. The mob boss raised his hand slowly, flash drive still clutched in his palm. And as they dragged him to the ground, cuffed him, read him his rights, he kept his eyes locked on her. Watching as she stood there, frozen, tears streaming down her face, caught between the father who betrayed her and the man who might have been the only honest thing in her life. But then something happened. Something nobody expected. She pulled out her own gun, aimed it at her father, and said, "You're not the hero. You never were." The judge's smile faded. "Sweetheart, put the gun down. You don't want to do this." But her hand didn't shake. "You used me. You used him. You used everyone. And you call it justice. But it's not. It's revenge. And I'm done being part of your game." She pulled the trigger. Not at him. But at the ceiling. The shot echoed through the church. Everyone flinched. And in that moment of chaos, she grabbed the mob boss's hand and ran. They crashed through the back exit, bullets flying, cops shouting, sirens wailing. They didn't have a plan. Didn't have an escape route. But they ran anyway. Together. Two people who should have been enemies. Two people who destroyed each other. Two people who maybe, just maybe, deserved a second chance. They made it 3 blocks before the car pulled up beside them. Black sedan. Tinted windows. Engine purring like a predator. The door swung open. And sitting in the back seat, casual as ever, was the mentor. The ghost. The real puppet master. He smiled. "Get in. We've got a lot to talk about." And as they stood there, breathless, cornered, with nowhere left to run, they realized the truth. The judge wasn't the mastermind. The mob boss wasn't the villain. And she was never the victim. They were all just pieces in a game that started long before any of them were born. A game run by the one man who never showed his face. The one man who controlled everything from the shadows. And now, standing at the edge of the abyss, they had one choice. Get in the car and learn the real truth, or stay and let the world bury them alive. He looked at her. She looked at him. And without a word they got in. The door slammed shut. The car pulled away. And as the city lights blurred past the windows, the mentor leaned back and said, "You want to know what really happened? You want to know who killed the judge's reputation? Who orchestrated this whole thing?" He lit a cigarette, exhaled slowly. "It wasn't me. It wasn't him. It wasn't even the judge." He smiled. "It was her." And the world went silent. She didn't deny it. Didn't defend herself. Just stared straight ahead as the truth settled in. Because the one person who played them all, who knew every move before it happened, who held every card, was the daughter. The one they all thought was just caught in the crossfire. The one who pretended to be lost. The one who set the entire thing in motion. And now, as they drove into the night, disappearing into the shadows of the city, the real game was just beginning. The end. Or is it?